Good afternoon, and I want to welcome the Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission, most of whom are here, including, we are so privileged to have these two co-chairs bringing a wealth of expertise from so many areas. Linda Nelson from Stonington, Economic Development Director. Yay! And Dan Tishman from Port Clyde and the world. And so many others with such a wealth of expertise and experience in not only storm issues, but economics and construction and human infrastructure planning. And there's Dr. Va. Come on down, Dr. Va. Our CDC director, because a lot of this is public health related too, right? I want to welcome you all here. Again, the co-chairs. It's good to be in Damariscotta and Lincoln Hospital. You know, we think this report is titled A Plan for Infrastructure Resilience. And the commission is Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission. Those are two very different things, right? Rebuilding, we know we've got to do, and that's why we went to the legislature 2 years ago and last year and obtained $60 million in state funding to rebuild. And how do we rebuild? Well, they've helped develop this plan for rebuilding on an urgent level and a time-sensitive level, but also on a long-term basis. And that's where resilience comes in as well. What the heck is resilience? It's a word people are using every 5 minutes, I think. Resilient this, resilient that. But to me, it calls to mind the sayings of the great Wayne Gretzky, who said, "You skate to where the puck is going to be, not to where the puck is." Rebuilding is over here. Resilience is where the puck is going, right? So here we are at Lincoln Hospital, and I know it's pretty unusual for a hospital president to have to pay attention to the tides, but that's exactly what Cindy Wade has had to do every time there was a storm in this area. Why? The road you took to get here, that low-lying causeway to Lincoln Hospital and the Watson Health Center, used to flood several times a year. Ambulances couldn't get here. Patients couldn't get here or leave. You charge them an extra day. No, just it wasn't a scam. Several times a year, the flooding would take away the causeway, the exit and the entrance. On those days, the town had no choice but to close the road and cut off primary access to this hospital for people around the region. That flooding isn't random. Nearly 90 years ago, we think about British engineer G.S. Callender. I'm sure you think about him every day. He warned the world that the impact of emissions on our atmosphere and the weather is, quote, not only possible, but is actually occurring at the present time, nearly 90 years ago. Ever since then, scientists have been sounding the alarm about how harmful gases in the atmosphere, trapping heat and moisture, melting glaciers, raising the sea levels, and altering global temperatures. Just last week, I learned a new word, this violent derecho, Spanish word, meaning really, really bad storm, tore across the Midwest, claiming the lives of many and causing significant damage. A derecho, if you look it up, is a storm system that is 400 miles long and 60 miles wide. Longer than the state of Maine is. It's longer than the distance between Fort Kent and Portsmouth, New Hampshire, or Kittery. That's huge. And it goes in a straight line, unlike the usual tornadoes that flutter around here or there, are totally unpredictable. But this is more predictable, but awfully more dangerous. And just yesterday, there were 50 storm reports, including damaging wind and hail. I just spoke with someone who's in New Mexico today, and he said he had never seen a storm like they saw in New Mexico the other day. Hail and sleet and snow in the summer in New Mexico. Beautiful but crazy damaging storms, he said. And those storms were reported across 10 states. In Maine, we no longer hear and see of the storms of yesterday. The ocean is warming, the sea is rising, and the winds are wilder. Just ask Kurt Brown, who's out in on the water all the time, right, Kurt?
That's right.
The ocean warmer?
Absolutely.
You don't go swimming in December.
Sometimes.
But it's rising, not intentionally. He's a good fisherman. The town of Damariscotta has worked with this hospital to raise the road, the causeway out here, to withstand extreme storms and rising sea levels. That project, which is almost complete, has worked well so far, facing the onslaught of an unusual storm system called the Omega Block just this week. Another new term, the Omega Block, like a Greek letter, that has been bringing downpours and high winds to Maine and to a dozen other states this week alone. Improving this causeway is certainly good for the hospital, good for emergency responders, and good for patients, and good for the community. But other town structures are still at risk of flooding. In fact, one study predicted that the basements and ground floors of historic buildings in downtown Damariscotta, watch out, Rennies, could be submerged by 3 feet of seawater within the next 50 years, if not sooner. 3 feet of seawater, that's how fast it's rising. So with the approval of the legislature, my administration made the largest investment in storm relief in Maine's history. $60 million to repair and rebuild infrastructure and to help businesses recover from the storms all across our state. That was an important first step. But we have to do more to protect the health and safety of Maine people during dangerous storms, to help emergency responders, and to safeguard our businesses and our economy from the impacts of dangerous weather patterns over the long term as well. Where the puck is going. And that brings me to today. A year ago, I signed an executive order establishing the Rebuilding and Resilience Commission, chaired by Linda Nelson and Dan Tishman, and spearheaded by the Office of the Future, Director Hannah Pingree, Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future. Office of the Future. I tease her because when I was running 7 years ago, I quoted Kurt Vonnegut a lot. Not many people do that, but one thing Kurt Vonnegut said was, every government, every cabinet ought to have a Department of the Future. So Hannah Pingree has headed up the Department of the Future for 6 years. This commission, which included state and local officials, emergency responders, businesses, lobstermen, experts in infrastructure and engineering and construction and utilities, insurance, financing, and philanthropy, and climate science, and healthcare, went to work. And I asked the commission to tell us how we can lower the risk of natural disasters, how to better prepare and respond to extreme storms in the future, and how to strengthen our basic infrastructure so our state can remain always a safe and a welcoming place. So these good people traveled all over the state for a year. They went to Rumford, Mexico, Machias, Caribou, all different places in between and northerly of that. And they listened to town leaders, emergency responders, fishermen, business owners, construction experts, and engineers, and just everyday people on main streets of towns across the state, as those people all described the harrowing storms that we'd experienced and the heroic actions which saved lives and saved the livelihoods of Maine people across the state. In Jay, for instance, a severe summer rainstorm washed out roads and culverts. I remember this. Route 4, Route 133, main thoroughfares in my neck of the woods. Nearby in Mexico, the Swift River raged through the town and claimed the lives of 2 people. Unheard of flow of the Swift River. In Stonington, people quickly secured damaged wharfs and bait sheds and secured them with chains and anything they had on hand. They parked a heavy forklift on one wharf, right, to try to weigh it down and on a pier, and so it wouldn't be carried away on the next tide. In Machias, the town offices and businesses along Route 1 the Maine thoroughfare, were badly flooded and severely damaged. The people of towns all across the state asked us for more tools to respond to these storms they had never faced before. And based on those requests, this commission released their first round of recommendations last November. We answered that call for help. We introduced LD1, an act to increase storm preparedness, which got the bipartisan sponsorship of all 4 House and Senate leaders. The legislature enacted it. I think got a unanimous committee report, I think. And I was proud and pleased to sign that bill into law just a few weeks ago. That law will strengthen homes, private homes against storms. You know, we have the oldest housing stock in the world, in the country, right? Not the world, the country. And we're always trying to get people to weatherize and use different methods to upgrade their homes. It will upgrade emergency warning systems for first responders, and it will map out future floods and floodplains so towns can better prepare and citizens can prepare for flooding. All of this was done in this bill without any general fund dollars. And today I am proud to join this commission for the release of its final report, a plan for infrastructure resilience. Looking to where the puck is going, right? Skating to where the puck is going. And I want to thank again Linda Nelson and Dan Tishman and Hannah Pingree and all the members of this commission for their work over the last year. They paid attention, they listened and learned, explored. They listened to the people of Maine and local leaders. And they've guided us with this report to making Maine a safer, stronger, more self-reliant state for years to come. Everybody wants to prevent as much damage as we possibly can and to quickly repair that which we cannot prevent. That's what it means to be resilient. That's what this plan does. As president of this hospital, Cindy Wade has enough on her plate without having to keep an eye on the tides every 6 hours or every 12 hours and watch anxiously as the rain falls on Days Cove, worrying that the next ambulance might not make it safely over the causeway. With the sea level rising 2.5 times faster than any point in history since 1912 that we know of, since measures were made, we are entering a new area of natural disasters that will threaten the future of communities like Damariscotta and communities across the state of Maine, inland and coastal communities both. May this report and the work of this commission continue to unite Maine people for years to come. These storms don't know whether you or your town or your neighbor are red, blue, or purple, or green. They don't care what party you're in. We just want to be protected against these storms and more resilient against the storms we know are coming. We're going to protect the public and support first responders, strengthen our economy, and keep our state the most precious, healthy, and safe place that we are so proud to call home. And so now I'd like to introduce Linda Nelson, co-chair of the commission and economic development director of the town of Stonington, where I first announced the commission 1 year ago. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Governor Mills. It has really been an honor of a lifetime and a privilege to have had the chance to serve the people of Maine and the great state of Maine. Thank you, Governor, for looking to the future, for keeping your eye on that pup.
Kurt, give you those.
That's right. And for taking swift action, right, to ensure that Maine leads the nation in our ability to sustain strong, healthy communities in the face of forces that often seem beyond our control. Sea level rise, unpredictable storms, and yet these things can also be heavily impacted by our choices. This has been a team effort from the start. A big thanks to the 24 other members of the commission from all walks of life throughout the state who have spent so much time over the past 12 months to make this an action plan that really has legs on it. Our gratitude goes as well to the countless local municipal officials, community leaders, emergency managers, and business owners who took the time to share their stories, ideas, and their needs with us, and their stress, too. What we're releasing today is an action plan of 50 things we can do starting now. In January of 2024, as you heard the governor say, my town of Stonington was struck by the back-to-back coastal storms that ravaged the entire coast of Maine. With the winds turned and coming from the southeast, what were once our protected harbors experienced unprecedented flooding that severely damaged the working waterfront infrastructure and businesses that are the backbone of our community. Our causeway is a one-way access on or off, like yours, a longer. And it was overtopped multiple times. People felt stranded for the first times in their lives on the island. To everyone's shock and horror, our commercial fish pier, which serves Down East's largest independently owned and operated fishing fleet, went underwater. It damaged all of its electrical components. The new owners of one of our waterfront seafood restaurants found their entire kitchen under feet of water. And it was in Old Orchard Beach and Saco that we learned how the loss of sand dunes due to storm erosion then leaves homes and businesses more vulnerable to the next storm. And in Rumford in Mexico, where, as you heard the governor say, we tragically lost 2 lives during these storms, we heard that the speed of the flood of December 2023 was unlike anything they had ever seen. No time to prepare, no time to evacuate. Too fast. In Rockland and Machias, very much like Stonington, waterfront infrastructure that is the economic engine of the 2 communities was flooded and damaged, and added new urgency to resilience projects that were already in progress. And last but not least, in Aroostook County, which didn't get hit by these particular storms, but which had experienced severe flooding in the past, we learned that their flood maps are decades out of date, making planning and preparedness so much more challenging. The messages we heard were urgent. One of our commission members, Shiloh Lafreniere, town manager of Jay, said it simply: communities in Maine are not prepared to deal with storms of this intensity. It's a new world. It's a different world. We have to be prepared to respond to these changes. We can't just keep doing business as usual. Our towns do not have the financial or the human resources within our communities for long-term recovery and rebuilding of key infrastructure. And when I say key infrastructure, think drinking water systems, think water sanitation systems, in addition to roads, wharves, causeways, and bridges. And our lack of human capacity makes it nearly impossible for small towns like Stonington, population 1,000, to locate and access the fragmented array of available resources outside of our communities. So this commission worked swiftly and diligently. I have to give you all so much credit. I have never been part of a harder working, more focused group of people. They produced the interim report that the governor mentioned and sent it to the governor and the legislature last November. And we were so buoyed by LD1. Thank you again.
Word? Oh, boy.
It's a good Stonington word. It's a little thing that floats, yeah. And that, because LD1 has already started the process of action. It's begun with LD1. It's implemented several of this commission's most important recommendations. Along with the governor's $60 million in investments in storm recovery and the state's $69 million federal resiliency funding, these things confirmed that our sense of urgency was well targeted and contributed to a strong sense of momentum of the commission. Wouldn't you guys say? Yeah. The conversations of our small working groups this winter, they ranged from working waterfront infrastructure vulnerabilities and permitting reform to workforce development and long-term financing of resilience needs. I don't know how many of you have tried to repair a wharf in the 18 months since those storms, but we don't have the people in the state to repair those wharves. Over the past 12 months, we've learned that the situation remains urgent. There is no way we can assume the storms of the past 3 years are anomalous. Maine itself must become better prepared, more active, more capable, better skaters, and self-resourced, especially in light of the changes we're all experiencing right now in federal policy toward assisting states with disaster management. The financial scale of our state's infrastructure resilience challenge is extensive, but can't be overwhelming. Hundreds of millions of dollars are needed in the next decade, but we can't let that stop us. We need to make those investments because, most importantly, the cost of inaction far exceeds that of proactive investment. Most of you know this is true in general, but for some reason we don't always think about that, right? You know the term deferred maintenance. We don't want to have to put money toward deferred maintenance. We want to put money toward the future, toward what makes something more resilient for the future. And a study by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Institute for Building Safety showed that every $1 invested in proactive resilience measures saves at least 13 in repair costs and adverse economic impacts. And our guess is that that's an underestimate when it comes to economic impacts for the state of Maine. 1 to 13. The work of this commission and this plan is urgent, I can't say it often enough, as well as a clear demonstration of how government works for the people of Maine. None of us can do these things alone. The projects are too big. So we're in this together. And the state of Maine and our governor has our backs. My fellow co-chair, Dan Tishman, from whom I've learned so much, is going to say more about the details of the plan. Thank you again for being here today.
Thank you, Linda.
Well, thank you, Governor Mills, for your kind introduction, but more importantly, for your steadfast leadership on behalf of the people of Maine. You gave us a task, and we took you seriously, and it has been not a saunter through our efforts, but a sprint, because we knew how important it was for the people of the state of Maine to go into action. And Linda, your partnership through this process has been invaluable. I'm deeply grateful to have worked alongside of you for your wisdom and for the leadership and your intense focus on your community, which was an inspiration for us to understand how to think about communities in the state of Maine. The one thing we learned early on, which really guided us, which was a bit of a positive, bright light, and that is that doing a analysis of the whole country, we learned that Maine was actually far ahead of most of the rest of the country in thinking about resilience. So it was your leadership, Governor Mills and Linda, in grabbing that opportunity and not only do the right thing for the people of Maine, but set an example for the people of America in how to think about resilience and rebuilding. Although, Governor, I would say your analogy of Wayne Gretzky and the hockey player is a good one, because I'm hoping that in the near future we continue to have ice to skate on to get to the puck as things warm. I want to also extend my sincere appreciation to the 24 members of the commission, many of whom are here today. This was a race. We told everybody that there would be an intense amount of time required, and everybody really stepped up. We in our listening tours around the state, which are not always easy to get to, we had incredibly good participation by commission members, joining in the visits to towns, joining on in-person meetings and a lot of Zoom meetings. This was a lot of work, and I really applaud you all for carving out what probably was a lot more of your time than you expected when you were invited to participate. And then, most importantly, this couldn't have happened without the incredible staff that Hannah has been leading in her GoPIF, the Office of the Future for the state of Maine. You guided your team, who really did all the work for us, including telling us when and where to be, how to get there, where to park, whether it was going to be hot or cold, wet or dry, and was really responsible for, the lion's share of the work for this report. I'm honored to be here today with all of you. As the governor mentioned, I live in Port Clyde. It's a really remarkable part of the state. It's a working waterfront, one of the very few remaining working waterfronts in the state. And like so many communities that are represented in this room and represented by the commission, is increasingly vulnerable to the storm surge, to warming ocean temperatures, to the impacts of not only episodic storms, but for the slow, insidious changing that's happening along the coast of Maine. It's been a privilege to bring my experience as a builder, as a construction person, to the commission for this important work. So today we're so proud to share the final report to the commission titled A Plan for Infrastructure Resilience. From the beginning, Linda and I agreed the plan had to meet the urgency of the moment and be practical and actionable. The plan outlines roughly 50 recommended actions that will strengthen Maine's infrastructure against future storms. It calls for sustained investment in better data and risk information, enhanced state and local capacity building, infrastructure upgrades, and regulatory reforms to make smart building and permitting decisions easier. The plan also establishes clear metrics to track our progress because the implementation and accountability are just as critical as vision. This report at its heart is meant to be implemented. We don't have the ability to have a report sit on a shelf and collect dust. Resilience is a bipartisan issue. Storms hit whenever and whomever they want at any time. Our state has made great strides, as Linda mentioned, with the governor promoting and implementing LD number 1 and the other investments that we've discussed. Thanks to LD1 and recent investments, Maine has made meaningful progress, but much more needs to be made. As storms become more frequent and federal response perhaps less certain, it's clear that Maine must chart its own path to resilience, driving the investments and decisions needed to protect all of our communities. That includes investing in public and private working waterfronts and in water and grid infrastructure, adopting stronger, more protective building codes, expanding the DEP's use of permit by rule to encourage resilience upgrades, developing a long-term plan for funding resilience, and exploring innovative insurance options for public infrastructure. And most critically, building the long-term capacity for our state, regional and local governments, as well as our academic and philanthropic partners, to understand risk, share information, and collaborate across sectors. This is not just an issue for the state to fund. We all carry responsibility through our private lives and our work lives, through our other great institutions in the state, to tackle this problem. This problem is not going to go away. We learned that one of the greatest problems that the state of Maine has is because it's such a large state with such a long such a long coastline, and so many communities that capacity, as the governor talked and as Linda talked about, the capacity is a major issue. So the report is laid out in short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And one of the things that is so refreshing as a participant of this commission is that the money that has flowed has been, by and large, dispersed from the state, and is actually responsible for projects and capacity building on the ground today. And with the new state's Department of Community, the MOCA, is that there will be a state organization that is available to lend capacity building efforts to communities throughout the state. While our role as co-chairs may be ending, Lynn and I remain fully committed to advancing the committee's work. We will continue to champion implementation through our other roles, and we look forward to working with many of you in the months ahead. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve the people and communities of the state of Maine through this commission. It's now my pleasure to introduce Andy Dorr.
He's right.
Andy Dorr, the town manager of Damariscotta. Andy, thank you for hosting us here today. Your town has a long record of infrastructure resilience projects and protecting the community against storms and flooding. We did not get to visit Damariscotta because during the work of the commission, but we are excited to be here today and hear about the protective work that you've been doing. So thank you for having us.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you here to Damariscotta to highlight the work in the Infrastructure, Rebuilding, and Resilience Commission. Governor Mills, welcome to Damariscotta again. Your presence here today underscores the importance of the work the Commission is doing.
I heard Rennie's was having a sale.
We know your commitment to the future of Maine's communities, to thoughtful planning, and to building a resilient state is unwavering, and we are deeply appreciative. We are periodically reminded that we are not ready to accommodate floods, and in December of 2023 and again in January of 2024, stormwater and tidal surge inundated our community. Other communities in the state saw destructive storm surge that removed whole buildings from their foundations or wrecked commercial fishing infrastructure. In Damariscotta, some of the businesses along Main Street were flooded, and multiple town roads were impassable. Damariscotta acknowledges the threats that natural disasters and flooding pose, and we're planning for a more resilient future. Since 2020, the town of Damariscotta has embarked on a multi-phase project that will protect downtown properties adjacent to the parking lot from the impacts of flooding and has raised the causeway to Maine Health Lincoln Hospital. The pictures over here show what's under the parking lot for those that are going to attend afterwards. The work here, this project for the town started over 10 years ago, envisioning how to improve and think about how to protect some of those buildings from floodwaters along the river's edge.
Wow.
Under the parking lot, there's a stormwater retention system that would be capable of handling a 6-inch rainstorm in a 6-hour period. The check valves on the outfalls are designed to be able to release the water as the tide recedes, allowing hopefully, as it's designed, not to flood and see the 2 to 3 feet of water, which is highlighted in the photo over here. That was in January of 2024. The public restrooms there on the right side of the image, and that was designed and built at the 100-year flood level. And you'll see the decking there is dry. And so it was designed, that storm almost hit that mark. And so there's about 3 feet of water on the back side of that building. So if you can imagine some of those storefronts or those property owners there had 1 foot, 2 feet, some more than that in the bottom levels of those buildings. As part of the Community Resilience Partnership, we're also reducing our energy consumption in our municipal buildings with insulation upgrades in our fire station, as well as conversion of LED lights. As you've heard, the commission has worked diligently over the last year to bring this plan forward. Thank you all for your willingness to serve on this commission and bring this work to the state of Maine. The plan provides clear guidance and a roadmap for communities like ours to be stronger, rebound faster from storm impacts, and potentially mitigate the impact storms have on our infrastructure in the first place. We're grateful for Governor Mills' leadership and the Commission's efforts to help us plan for a vibrant and resilient future. At this time, I'd like to welcome Cindy Wade, President of Maine Health Lincoln Hospital.
So hello and welcome. Thank you for being here at the Miles campus, and thank you to Governor Mills. Thank you to the commission. What an amazing amount of work you've produced in just a year. I'd also like to thank Andy for the partnership he has provided to us here at Maine Health Lincoln Hospital on the Miles campus. As you see in these pictures, and as the governor talked about earlier, I actually have a bird's eye view of that causeway and have sat there wringing my hands on many an occasion watching as the tide has risen, because we're fortunate to live on this beautiful waterway, but the tide has risen and the culverts were unable to accommodate the amount of water. And so the water then flows over the top of that causeway, which ultimately decreases access to this campus. This campus is valuable to this community, and it's not safe for cars to pass. It's not safe for our emergency medical vehicles to pass. And so it has put us at risk many a time over the last few years. And you got to cross that causeway. Yes, it's under construction. It's our second phase of this project, and we are very grateful for the support and help of the town and this commission's work and the money that has gone into this. It is a short pathway, unlike the long pathway that you spoke of, but it is a very imperative one to us here locally. So thank you to the help, again, of Andy and the team in Damariscotta, to our hospital, and to the donors that have also supported this project above and beyond the work that's gone on. The height of the causeway has been risen to hopefully accommodate over the next 100 years. Increase in storm surges and increase in the tides. We also were able during this project to replace an over 80-year-old water main, which was imperative also to this campus. And due to donors here locally, we're able to put in a much needed pathway or sidewalk that's raised above and make it more safe for people coming and going off of campus. People do walk to campus. It's also been able to provide us with lighting that, of course, adds safety to our care team and anybody else using those causeways, that causeway after the sun has gone down. These improvements further strengthen the connection our campus has and with the town. It allows us to worry less about the causeway's future, and maybe I won't stand there watching as the water starts to rise. I'll find something else to watch, like the helicopter trying to land in our parking lot, but we are so very, very grateful for this work. It really, to me, is a perfect example of the mission of Maine Health, which is working together so our communities are the healthiest in America. This is how we're trying to meet that mission. And vision is allowing people to get to the care that they deserve and they need. I'm looking forward to seeing this wonderful report and reading through it and learning more about proactive preparation for weather-related disasters. But in the meantime, thank you for supporting us here in Damariscotta and supporting the causeway that leads to this amazing facility.
Thank you.
I'm the last speaker. Thank you all for standing up. Thank you again, Cindy and Andy, for sharing the incredible work Damariscotta has done to better prepare for the storms ahead, and more importantly, to protect the vital infrastructure that underpins your community, which includes your hospital, your downtown, and your businesses. Your communities are lucky to have you both. I actually also observed Andy's awesome leadership on the island of Vinyl Haven, and it's great to see the forward-thinking and creative approach you and your community takes. I want to again thank the governor for your tremendous leadership for this work. We are here because of how much you care about the people and communities of Maine. Your continued push across the administration to both tackle climate change and prepare for the storms ahead has made a real difference for our state. I want to again thank Dan and Linda, who've gotten a couple thanks, but they have steered this process so ably, and all the commission members, many of whom are behind me, who brought tremendous expertise and ideas to this work. I observed just how much the leadership of this commission and its members pushed for actionable recommendations. I know Linda said that, but it's a word she used probably 1,000 times. We have to take action, and now. As you've heard, their diligence has already paid off. Commission leaders have even volunteered to continue this push for progress and have urged for continued efforts towards accountability to make sure this plan's many 50 tasks are actually done and they don't sit on a shelf in Augusta. In addition, I want to specifically call out and thank several others, including the state agencies, many of whom are represented behind me, who have done so much heavy lifting to make these programs work. I want to again thank the GoPIF staff who've done so much to advance the work of the Commission and its policies, as well as the key staff from MEMA, the Bureau of Insurance, the Governor's Energy Office, Department of Transportation, Marine Resources, Environmental Protection, and Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. I want to also recognize the other local leaders who are here in this room, because I know you are doing a lot of heavy lifting, from Lincoln County Emergency Management, the Lincoln County Commission, both the director and commission members, municipal leaders, I think, from Wiscasset and Booth Bay and maybe other towns, plus, of course, the town of Damariscotta and some of their select board members. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for what you do. We know that climate impacts and severe weather events will only increase in the years to come. As scientists, like Pete Slavinsky, right, who advise the Maine Climate Council, have told us over and over. When we started this work in 2019, some of the predictions, they seem far off and in the future. But after these 3 back-to-back storms that we've talked so much about, it felt like the loudest possible wake-up call. This commission has seen the real-world consequences on the ground. You've heard about some of them. But damage to infrastructure means that warnings don't get to people as cell service and broadband service goes down. Ambulances can't reach patients and hospitals due to flooded roads. Power outages stretch on for days. Drinking water becomes contaminated. Iconic working waterfronts risk never being rebuilt. And we are also all feeling the cost. Storm recovery is proposed to add approximately $20 to ratepayers' electricity bills in the CMP territory starting on July 1. Infrastructure and recovery costs are borne by local property taxpayers, landowners, and business owners. And as has been said so well, investments in resilience pay huge dividends in the future. And we all know this, everyone behind us, everybody in this room know this because we've seen firsthand. But the recovery has also been inspiring. My hometown just up the coast saw our island boatyard, J.O. Brown & Sons, a central community hub, nearly wash away in the first January storm. Today, the yard is back up and running, and they are working to accomplish multiple major infrastructure projects to better prepare for the storms ahead, thanks to a working waterfront recovery grant from the state and lots of hard work by the whole Brown family. As the governor mentioned, this commission recommended a series of early actions that led to the passage of LD1, which is now the law, thanks to the leadership of the governor and the overwhelming bipartisan support from the Maine legislature. In these sometimes very partisan times, this outcome was a big, big deal. To help communities better prepare, LD1 also created the new State Resilience Office in law within the Maine Office of Community Affairs to see this work through. This new office will manage flood programs, as the governor mentioned, advance numerous other efforts to support communities. The plan also recommends that the State Resilience Office be responsible for the coordination, the tracking, and accountability for this plan. We are joined today by the first director of the office, Samantha Horn, who is already doing so much heavy lifting to get MOCA off to a great start. Thank you, Samantha. I'm also very pleased to announce today, this is the last announcement, that Brian Ambrette, who is the lead commission staff member through the Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future, will serve as Maine's first state resilience officer. This commission knows how knowledgeable, skilled, and caring Brian is, and I will just say, he also wrote most of the words in this report. If there's a typo, it may be his fault, but hopefully there aren't any. Brian has led on state resilience policy since 2019, supporting the Community Resilience Working Group of the Maine Climate Council, and he piloted and then launched the incredibly successful Community Resilience Partnership Program that now supports more than 260 communities across Maine in resilience and emission reduction projects. Brian knows that communities are the heart of this work, so it's a huge honor to be the first to publicly congratulate you, Brian, on this new role. And while I said I wouldn't, we're not going to sing. It happens to be his birthday, so it's a big exciting day for Brian. So again, I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the folks in this room who do this hard work at the local level. And I again want to really thank the commission members and state agency officials who day in and day out, in many, many ways, participate in this work. So the sun is shining. We are in this hospital because we looked at the weather report and it was like 9 days of rain. But we do want to take anybody who is able down to kind of, you all saw it in your parking. Thank you. By the way, town manager Andy Dorr, he helped us set up this event. He did so much heavy lifting, and then he was also directing our parking. So that's how running a town in Maine does work. So Andy will lead us on a tour as soon as we can all shuttle ourselves down there to hear more about the mitigation project. There are also 4 or 5 different downtown businesses who are going to be down there for anybody who wants to hear more about what they have gone through and their rebuilding. So again, thank you all for coming, and again, thank you to the commission and the governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.